This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Friday, May 30th, 2025, and I've got the most lovely Ray Wong with me here today. Hi, Ray. How are you?
Hi, Miriam. Happy Friday. It's great to be here again. I think this is my second time.
Thanks for squeezing it in. I know it was a rough day for you today. You're now at Gizmodo. Congratulations. This is so exciting. Since we last talked, obviously, on the show. So, hey, there's a bunch of news we're going to cover, some of it rapid fire, kind of like PSA style for my audience. But I want to focus on something that I think you're probably one of the best people to talk to about, and that's AI gadgets. You know, things like the Rabbit R1, Humane Pin. We've got like this big new announcement from OpenAI and IO, the company from Johnny Ive that got acquired. And I kind of want to get a feel for where you're at with this, because obviously on the smartphone side, things have really evolved, and we're actually going to talk about a little bit about like OnePlus's AI strategy, for example. We've seen nothing. We've seen Moto come with AI buttons on their phones, and we've seen them kind of appropriate some of that AI gadget thing. And I'm sure you have many thoughts about wearing a little pin or a watch or glasses versus pulling out your phone. So stuff like that. Let's start with Humane. Obviously, you were, an ardent user. You're very critical, but I think you really cared about the product. And I want to hear your thoughts on how you feel about what happened.
So for those who don't know, Humane sold itself for an undisclosed sum to HP. Yes, HP, the printer maker. And they bought the IP, not the pin. So I guess the underlying Cosmos OS tech and, the AI and, all the software stuff. And from what I heard from people who are familiar with the matter, they are building out some kind of AI wing or division within HP. Apparently, HP
Who isn't building an AI wing right now?
Apparently, HP was not. They were not jumping on this trend, and so that's why they needed this or wanted this, because they need to accelerate their AI development in whatever ways they're planning to implement it. So, this happened in a couple months ago, right?
Yeah.
And it's sad to see the dream end, but it was inevitable. There are many rumors shortly after the pin had launched that they were trying to shop themselves for, like, I think $500 million to $1 billion, which was they were never going to get, considering how big of a flop the AI pin was in terms of sales. Apparently there were record return rates. There were more pins being returned than purchased per week. And so, I think the pin had some great ideas. It was just poorly executed.
Did you continue wearing it like this whole time until they shut you down, or did you kind of start shelving it towards the end?
I wore it less and less. There are very specific use case scenarios where I wore it. So I was, I'm learning Mandarin, and for me, that was a very useful tool. So I have I would say my level of Mandarin is like intermediate, but in terms of like reading and writing and speaking. But my confidence level of speaking is not as high as it should be. And so oftentimes I would, normally I would take out my phone and look up Google Translate and, see that what I'm about to say to, say, a person in a restaurant or, a store is actually what I'm trying to say. And whereas wearing the pin, on weekends and sometimes during the weekdays, I could just, tap on it, hear the translation, then like quickly project it onto my hand to get a confirmation that, okay, this is indeed what the Chinese characters that I heard, and then I would just repeat it, more confidently. And I thought that was a great tool for learning languages, getting translations, real-time translations. I did enjoy listening to music with it, even though it was exclusively on Tidal. Just like listen ambiently was really nice. The camera really never really got better, in my opinion. Battery life did improve dramatically. The hallucinations also improved dramatically. There were fewer hallucinations. And, after ChatGPT 4.0, the intelligence just got so much better. Now,
that makes sense.
A lot of the features that were promised never came to fruition. Email and content creation or whatever, shopping, all this stuff. A lot of the stuff that Imran Chowdhury had, talked about on stage at the TED Talk, in 2023, they just never appeared. And it's tough, trying to convince a world of, users who have grown accustomed to staring at their phones, opening apps, to go back to being present. And then I think the biggest challenge is most people don't want to be that present anymore. It sounds virtuous and sounds like the intentions are good, but a lot of especially young people, right? Like they have only grown up digital with phones in their hands and iPads in their hands, and they don't know what it's like to be present and like actually have these like conversations. And to them, and to most people, I don't want to be ageist here. Continuing the conversation that you had online and on social in real life and talk and vice versa, that is just life. That's just regular present.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I was at Google I/O and I was just talking to a bunch of people, including yourself, right? Like,
yeah, that's so nice.
We're having these conversations where we always like talk about it on Twitter replies and threads or wherever, Instagram. We're also connected and we all know what's happening in each other's lives, that we were able to fluidly pick up these conversations over a dinner. And some of these people I had not even met in real life before. And so that was like a real eye-opener for me. It's like, okay, this is reality. Not being present and staring at each other's eyes necessarily, Intentions were good for what you made.
Speaking of which, one of the things I'm wondering whether it was a challenge for you, specifically with your main pin, was that you had your own phone number with the pin. And so texting became an issue. Now, I realize obviously not everybody is texting. A lot of us are using other platforms, right? And RCS has really helped a lot in unifying the Android and iOS world lately. How did you handle that? Did you not use it for that at all? Because having the separate number and having to update everyone and all that, or what?
So I have two phone numbers.
Who doesn't?
Well,
I mean, for us, right?
I then had three phone numbers, right, at that time, because like I have two phone numbers, one for Android, one for iPhone. I always have like two phones in my pocket, Android and iPhone. And yeah. I mean, I gave my family that number, and I told them and encouraged them to text me on that number, just so I can get the experience and get that stuff in. But most of them dropped off because it's not iMessage, and I was, it's hard. Dictating it wasn't necessarily the most accurate way to text back. And so a lot of my message would come back jumbled or like, poorly like transcribed and dictated. And after a point, I just stopped texting with it, to be honest. Now, phone calls, I thought was really nice. It was really nice to be able to just like hands-free. Now you can do the same with an Apple Watch and, push your call over to your watch, or, if you have a cellular model. But at home, I really don't like to hold a brick to my head. And I don't really want to wear your AirPods at home for phone calls specifically.
For that, it does make sense to have it right there.
That portion was nice. So, I was an optimist, and, I believed in these kinds of AI gadgets, and, I still use the Rabbit R1 pretty regularly. But I know what it is. And what it's not. And,
so tell us, because I struggle with it. I have one. I bought it, and I pull it out to update the software, really. But it's hard for me to jump in and use it because I always have phones on me. And if I have to pull it out of the pocket, I might as well pull out a phone and talk to Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever. So that's the thing. So what's the use case for you there?
Yeah, so the R1 is pretty exclusively a home device for me.
Okay.
Like
no SIM card, Wi-Fi only, basically?
Yeah, it's Wi-Fi only. And I mean, the battery life is still trash. Just like sitting idle, it just like drains 30% overnight. And I'm just like, I wake up and I'm like, what the hell? This was 100% before I went to sleep. Like, what the hell happened?
Wow, it's still happening, huh?
It's not good. And yeah, I mean, I like to use it at home when I'm like, I have it like basically on a little stool next to my like lounge chair in front of my TV in my living room. And I use it mostly to like, ask basic like search questions through Perplexity Pro.
Oh, you have Perplexity Pro. That helps. Yeah.
Well, they gave everybody a free 1-year subscription.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I don't know if it's too late to redeem it, but mine just recently expired, and I realized I actually use Perplexity Pro quite a bit for work and personal, and so I just decided to let it subscribe. Yeah, it's $20 a month, but I think it's way better than Google, and I get a lot of value out of it.
Good.
Especially for like learning languages like Mandarin, like asking it to explain what the context of this like passage is. Like it's really very good. And I'm only scratching the surface of the feature set for Perplexity. Yeah, I mostly like use it when I'm like watching TV. I need a translation. I ask for what this means, or like,
do you use the camera feature to like show it something and say, tell me more about this, or not even that, but like, like especially if you're looking at some subtitles like in Mandarin or something, like, Yeah,
not too much, to be honest. I think the new features that they've added are pretty novel. They've got the Magic camera, which like allows you to like AI generate and convert an image into like, say, some pixel art or artistic style. A lot of the stuff that they've added, and I got to give credit to Rabbit for adding a lot of features.
Yeah, they've been on top of it. I appreciate
They've been like
that.
just like really heads down and adding updates, but at the same time, I don't know how many people are actually like looking at these updates and keeping up with them, and who knows if it's like too little or too late right now, but like, at least they're still continuing, whereas Humane just completely fell off the map and flamed out.
Here's my question to you. Like, nothing CMF Phone 2 Pro, $279 or whatever Moto G you want to get a review unit for. Why wouldn't that be better than R1 with Perplexity installed on it? That's my question, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
For the use case, especially that you have, where you don't even need a SIM card, it's sitting at home on your night table,
You're right. But I think I look at the Rabbit R1 as a toy, and
you have it, right? So I might as well use it, right?
I paid for it. Like, they didn't give out review units.
Same, they didn't.
So I paid full price, $200 for it, and it's a toy. It's very much like a Tamagotchi, a instant camera. Like, these things are not. I don't take it seriously. Like, I'm not using it to try to transform my life and like be more productive in a more efficient way.
I agree with you. I think it's also a great device in terms of like, I love how it's, a lot of people like it feels cheap. Yeah, but that's kind of the charm of it.
That's the charm of it.
I feel like there is some good industrial design there. Like you can feel definitely the influence from the Swedes, right? And
from teenage engineering.
And it's like, I think it's fun, but
it's fun.
You know what? You're just motivating me to pull it out and maybe put it on my night table and use it.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, like, I have an old iPhone. Get this. I have an iPhone 6 Plus on my night table that I only use as an alarm clock and a home automation controller. So when I want to turn off my lights or whatever. And
I know that not everyone has the luxury of, as us, we have a lot of phones.
No, of course. But a 6 Plus, how old is that phone? Like 8 years now?
Oh, yeah.
It's still fine, guys. Yeah. The battery is still good on it. Everything.
Repurpose it. I don't think we should waste electronics like that, and repurpose it however way you want. I want to just like go back to the topic of fun, right? With this device.
Yeah.
Teenage engineering design devices are fun.
All of
them. Like Pocket Operator, even the Playdate. Like these things these are novel. They're kind of expensive and overpriced for it. These things could all be apps. But they're mechanical and tactile, and that's the fun. And
the recorder, whether TP-07 or whatever it is, oh my God, I want one so bad.
It's
like
so
I
expensive.
Would spend money on that just because
it's like $1,500-$1,600.
As an audio geek, I would totally like if tomorrow I ran into some money that was completely frivolous, I would just
do that. Teenage engineering, if you hear this, send me one.
Send us both one.
Me first, though.
You have a good reason, yes.
I mean, they're fun. And I think so many people have truly forgotten that gadgets can be fun. They don't need to just be freaking like apps in your phone, Like, I thought it would never happen to me. Like, I thought I had the discipline to not get like lost in doom scrolling TikTok or Instagram, but like many times, I'm gonna admit this, many times I've like watching TV, I'm like, take out my phone, I meant to like look one thing up, and boom. Next thing I knew, I'm like looking down Instagram for like, or Reddit or whatever for like the next like 30 minutes.
You get
my
distracted.
TV like turns off and I'm like, oh, right. I was watching a TV show, and then whereas the rabbit is like, it's a little slower. It gives you the answer and then I just move on, move on with my life. So
I like that. I'm going to try that. I think this is a good idea.
One more thing about the rabbit, I'm not paid by Rabbit. I want to make that abundantly clear.
We know that.
A lot of people have said I'm like a shill. I write positive coverage for them. No, look, I think it's fun, and also I like the little like toy-like feature that they added, which is the gotcha like vending, like the little crane game machine. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
So like your R1 has like the little cute little rabbit avatar whenever like you ask it a question, so its ears like perk up, and then they added like these little like accessories that you can collect. So every time you like make a query or whatnot, it gives you a certain number of carrots. Now I don't know how many carrots each one gives you, what the logic behind that is, but like it's like 2 to 3 carrots or whatever. Sometimes you get 4, I think. And so after a certain number of carrots, I think it's maybe like 10 carrots or whatever, you can use that to redeem like a chance to like twist this like vending machine and a little gotcha ball falls out and you win like a little prize. And they've got like all these cute little outfits and they have rarities on them. It's like common, uncommon.
I mean, I knew that had other features, but I've never actually seen it happen.
It's called Arcade, okay. And you just scroll down from the main screen. It's really fun. I was really addicted to it over Christmas break. My friends and family were like, we were just asking questions nonstop just to earn carrots to like get these little outfits. I think I have most of them. But cool. Yeah, that was cute. That's fun.
So they're coming up with a new UI design. We've seen like a little video or whatever of it. Like, what are your thoughts on that? I like it. I like card-based UIs in general. Yeah. I think they're best for smartwatches. They're best for like
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Cover screens and all kinds of things.
I think it makes a lot of sense for, especially when paired with the scroll wheel, the physical scroll wheel on the R1. And it's more colorful, it's more playful, it's easier to navigate. I don't know how well and responsive it'll be, because the current very, very basic, like stripped down UI right now is not even that responsive. There's like a second or two of lag. So if they can overcome that, that'll be impressive. But it's also possible that they might be announcing faster hardware with this device. Now, R1 is like over a year old now, just over a year. And the chipset inside is like old. It's a MediaTek chip,
It's like a 4G MediaTek chip. It's one of the Helio chips. I mean, it was already pretty low end when it shipped. So, but I mean, that's, by the way, for folks and wondering why are we talking so much about AI gadget? Well, because Ray is an expert, but also because this is the news that made me go like, we should really talk about all this stuff, because there's a lot going on right there. And I haven't really covered all the stuff that R1 has, Rabbit has released, the updates. I haven't really talked to anyone about, who, especially a humane pen user, how they felt about how it ended. I feel like HP is always kind of seems to be gobbling up all the good stuff out there, and it's arguable whether humane was good, but I think it was to some extent. Like, I think that I feel the same way as you, that there's some good ideas in there. I think what bothered me the most was all the hubris and the exaggerated, and I feel like this is actually a good segue to the next thing, which I feel like a bit of that going on with this OpenAI, Johnny Ive, IO acquisition announcement that we saw last week. I covered it briefly with David Kogan on the podcast last week, but what are your thoughts on that now that you've kind of been a little burned, I guess, with, I mean, you didn't, you got a review unit, but at the same time we all got a little burnt with, and I also feel like R1 a little bit, because it's not, they still haven't delivered what we expected them to, right?
I think, first of all, the black and white photo of Johnny Ive and Sam Altman was ridiculous,
the marriage announcement.
Yes, the marriage
wedding. The announcement. It was hilarious. It was Chris Davies. I have to give credit, Chris. He said, "Look, they're announcing their new Orchid." Like,
it was ridiculous. Like, especially once the news reports started going out about how they met, and their relationship is very, brief. Like they've only known each other briefly. Like Johnny Ive said something like, "Oh, his kid showed him like ChatGPT, and then was talking about how it's so awesome." And next thing you knew, he was talking to, to Sam Altman. Then they became like lovers or whatever.
Well, apparently they're getting married. I mean, that to me, that's like a total marriage announcement photo.
But I think such a weird announcement. The reality distortion field is on full blast, and they're really hyping this thing. Now, it's so odd because Steve Jobs was a showman, but he also never like hyped it up like this before announcing the product. And, yes, I know that you want to like tell everybody like you've got this like power couple like thing happening. It's worth the $6.5 billion.
No, it's not.
OpenAI paid for.
It's totally over. In my opinion, this is just about making money out of thin air, really.
But like everything that has like supposedly like leaked out about what this device could possibly be, it doesn't sound any that different than like the stuff that Humane or Rabbit are trying to achieve, which is some kind of like, it sounds like a screenless device because it sounds like, Johnny said that he feels a little guilty for some of the phone addiction that he helped create, which is the exact same feeling that Imran and Bethany Borjano at Humane felt. And that's why they want to undo this a little bit.
Exactly.
Obviously, it's working with Sam Altman and ChatGPT. And so it's probably going to be like an agent there, some kind of ChatGPT powered device. It's supposed to be like maybe like a wearable or like something you can wear around your neck, like a necklace,
pendant.
Pendant.
I think the brooch was a better idea, but I mean,
I don't know, man. Like this all sounds also, pretty much like what Humane was trying to do.
This is a good idea.
Yeah. Smartwatch, yes.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a smartwatch in the sense of what I have on my wrist, which is OnePlus Watch 3 with Wear OS. It could just be like one of those quote unquote,
hybrid watches.
Like hybrid watches. I call them fitness bands on steroid watches, because all it really needs is, the assistant. If this had Gemini, instead of assistant on it, which I know is coming.
It's coming, yeah.
Yeah, it would be pretty great because honestly, the battery life is good. And first, I don't care about apps on my watch. I do care about notifications. I do care about the sleep tracking, the step tracking, the workouts. I do care about the voice assistant a lot.
Now I feel like it's a possibility, given that Johnny Ive and Mark Newson love watches. They love mechanical watches.
Exactly.
And maybe who was actually alluding to the Apple Watch and not the iPhone in terms of like the screen addiction. But yeah, maybe you could make like a mechanical, nice analog watch with a ChatGPT built into it. And, that's the way you interface.
And the sensors for tracking the steps and the sleep and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. That's a possibility.
So question for you, did you watch the video that OpenAI published?
Of course.
Of course you did, right? So were you able to finish watching it without
I watched the whole thing.
Okay, good. Yeah, me too. Okay, so this is my problem with all of this. I'm totally on board. I think this is a great partnership. I'm looking forward to seeing the result. But did we have to have again, like Humane, the hubris? Did we have to have again all this BS?
No.
Especially, it's been done before. Like, that's my point. Yeah. Like, we should have learned from the last AI toy, right? Or gadget.
Yeah.
And I feel like, oh, come on. It was a bit cringe. Besides the black and white.
It was very cringe. I mean, just like two guys walking across town, meeting up
awkwardly walking across town.
Awkwardly walking, meeting up at a restaurant and having like
That's a very famous coffee shop in San Francisco.
Yeah.
By the way.
And I don't know if you saw, there was like some new San Francisco like publication that published this thing about how it was like a frame by frame almost analysis, and they were like, "Oh, look at this guy who shows up in this scene, and then he shows up in this other scene, and he shows up in this third scene." Like they have $6.5 billion, and they can hire a few more extras, and you reuse the same guy to walk behind Johnny Ive.
Maybe it was all AI generated.
Maybe it was all AI generated. I mean, maybe.
It costs money to close down a coffee shop for an afternoon.
If that is AI generated, I'd be impressed.
No, it wasn't.
The whole thing was just like, okay, we get it. You guys are madly in love, and you guys are like you feel like this is the partnership of a lifetime. Like, but also
as a queer person, I can say it was very gay. I approve of the gayness of it.
But also just like Johnny was like, oh yeah, Sam Altman is like Steve Jobs or whatever. It's like, dude, what are you doing? How no. But Sam Altman is not like Steve Jobs. He's not visionary.
This is very Sam Altman. You have to understand, right? Like I think Sam Altman is, one of the best, creating money out of thin air persons around right now. He's kind of, in that sense, he's kind of like Steve Jobs in the sense that he can create a hype bubble like no one else, right? Like, and I think that's his strength, and it's gotten him very far so far. And whether it's good for all of us, I'm not quite sure.
I mean,
but I'm honestly, after I/O, you were there, and we talked about with Kogan last week. I was both kind of feeling deep dread after watching or being at the keynote, but at the same time, excitement for the XR stuff, but also because I finally saw some stuff there that I was like, okay, AI, like especially the agentic stuff that doesn't necessarily hallucinate as much because they have the facts. That stuff's got me excited, and I feel like we're seeing some progress with AI that is meaningful lately. So that's why I'm kind of excited about AI gadgets, which we're talking about, whether they end up being glasses or a watch or whatever. But I think that I still feel like, come on, we gotta come off this hype train. It's getting too much.
I mean, just imagine if this thing flops, they're gonna both have like so much egg on their face. Like so much.
But this is the thing. Like, here's the thing. They won't. Listen to me. Like Pebble flopped and Eric Majakowski carried on and he did very well for himself. And I love the guy. But like I'm just saying, he didn't have to. Like you would have thought that considering how they flopped, that they wouldn't have. But people, I think Silicon Valley is built on, if you fail, we're going to give you more money so you can fail again. And there's this weird, it's very strange. Like, I don't think it's going to affect it. I don't think it's going to affect the folks at Humane that created the company, Bethany and what's his name, Chandra.
I love everything that, Imran. Look, I love everything that Johnny has given to this world.
Me too.
But at the same time, he's a cocky bastard, all right?
Well, not only that, but here's the thing. He hasn't been relevant in 5 years. Where's the product?
More than that.
Well, more than that, because he had people do the stuff for him at Apple, right?
Like, I think he lost the plot, like, after Steve Jobs died, to be honest.
He just tuned out after that.
He just tuned out. And, I truly don't think it's going to succeed. And the hype is, we're going to look back at this hype and it's like, of course it wasn't going to succeed. Of course it couldn't ever live up to the hype that they were drumming up,
But you know what? We're going to cover it because it's interesting.
I want to be hopeful because as much as I love reviewing phones and writing about phones, and phones are not going away anytime soon, I want to see something new. It doesn't need to destroy everything that came before it and replace everything like the iPhone did, but I want to see something new come up and make us feel alive again.
Yes.
All right.
I have bad news for you because we're going to be covering more phones at the end of this podcast. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Some of it is cool. And I think that's the other thing is if we put our hat of, hey, there's still some cool stuff happening in the phones. You just have to kind of dig a bit. I think the problem that we have in North America, right, is that we just have Samsung and Apple and maybe OnePlus and Moto and Google on a good day. And it's very boring. Like, last week, Kogan and I talked about the Galaxy S25 Edge. I've had it for couple of weeks now. And it's delightful to hold. I love how it feels in hand. But how is it that much different from, an Ultra? Of course, it doesn't have the telephotos and it's the battery is smaller and sure the battery life is suffering from it. But there's nothing inherently wrong with that phone. I can see how some people might go for that because it is light and thin. But at the same time is, I'm thinking to myself, won't every phone in 5 years be that light and thin? Like, isn't that where we're headed with silicon carbon batteries and all that stuff, So okay, so what's the big deal, right? But at the same time, I have to say, once I held it, once I played with it, I was like, oh, this does feel, there's way more to it, I felt, than just looking at it in photos and conceptually reading about it. Yeah. So related, by the way, to all of this stuff, since we're kind of transitioning to phones, how do you feel about these not dumb phones, but these minimalist phones? Like we have had conversation with that with my previous guests every now and then, minimal phone and that other one, whatever it's called, the Light Phone 3. How do you feel about that? I just really feel that a bit of discipline on like an iPhone 16e or a Pixel 9a would go a long way. You could just buy one of those and configure it to just be a minimal phone and call it a day.
Install launcher, especially on Android. Yeah, you could.
How do you feel? Do you think that's too much discipline for most people?
I think it is.
Okay.
It's a niche product. I actually just got to play with Michael Fisher's reviewing it for the Light Phone 3 yesterday.
Uh-huh.
And it's got some good ideas. I like the tactility of the scroll wheel. I like the matte screen. I like the weird squatter shape aspect ratio.
I love the look
Uh,
of it. Yeah.
I love that there's no camera bump. It's flush. It's a thick phone. It feels, it's like basically the size and thickness of a deck of cards. And but it doesn't have email on it. It doesn't even have email on it. I can't do my
Doesn't have
job without email.
RCS. Doesn't have RCS on it either.
Exactly. So, Michael Fisher is out here carrying an iPad to get his notifications.
Surprised he didn't bring a folding phone with that.
I know. Because he's doing a 2-week thing or whatever, living with a light phone. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's made for a specific time and place, maybe on the weekend when you're trying to get away from the city and from work and all that stuff, vacation. But at the same time, just like the discipline is pretty hard, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I get that. Yeah, I feel like it's interesting, but I still feel you could set up a phone to be minimalist and call it a day.
Yeah.
And lock yourself out somehow if you really had to. And it'd probably be a better experience.
Probably.
Because you could customize what matters to you and what doesn't. And, I know that takes a lot because at first you'll be like, oh, but I need this. Oh, but I need that. But, maybe you can in advance write down what you want, what you need, decide, and then go with that and then reevaluate every month what gets thrown out, what gets added. And maybe you'll end up with a full phone again. Who knows? But that'd be a really interesting experiment, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. All right, let's talk about some phones. I got a couple of phones here I want to quickly show the audience. Sure. There's a Moto Edge now. That's finally available. I've got it in a box here. So for those of you watching on Patreon, and for those of you, by the way, who are paying attention, in the show notes now I've been putting affiliate links. So if you want to help, you know where to look for maybe this Moto phone. So I'm unboxing it here a little bit because, that's the Moto Edge. And we're not getting any other Edges. There's a couple of models abroad that were launched at the same time as the Razr. And this is the only one we're getting in the US. So I don't know. You're getting a free unboxing on Patreon if you're watching, guys. But I don't know how you feel about Moto making, quote unquote, a flagship, because they seem to be doing well with the Moto G series, and the Razr's obviously selling well according to them. Do you think there's room in this market that, OnePlus and Google pretty much dominate, other than Apple and Samsung, when it comes to flagships, to actually have a flagship from Moto?
I don't know too much about it, but I know that they have strong brand recognition in more developing regions and places like South America, Africa, etc. So, they have a strong brand there. And so if people are buying the G series and the budget phones and the foldables, then they'll naturally look at what premium offerings.
Yeah, but you think here in this market, obviously in South America, this phone's going to sell like hotcakes. There's no doubt. Yeah. And they have a slightly different version anyway.
Yeah, in the US, I think it's tough. It's pretty tough.
And it's interesting because they were two versions, I think, they exist abroad. And so I was surprised that we didn't get two versions here. This, by the way, has a plastic frame, as you can see here. There's no antenna bands, but it does have 3 cameras. And I've got the specs here real quick. Dimensity 7400, which is a mid-range chip. It does have a 50 megapixel selfie camera, 50 megapixel main, 10 megapixel telephoto. It's a 3X. It has OIS, so not too bad. 10 megapixel ultra wide as well, with autofocus, which means you can do macro. It's got an OLED display at 120 hertz. It's actually a 1220p display, so it's not like a HD. It's a little better than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's not bad, but it's, the question is, does it matter when it's not a proper flagship because it doesn't have an 8 Elite or a Dimensity 9400? And, when they have the Razr, which is really their flagship, I feel like, especially with the 8 Elite version now. That's kind of where I'm at. And I'm not sure where do you think this phone's just going to be a carrier phone at this point? Probably. I feel like it will. So, yeah. Right. Let me look up the price real quick, because I feel like that might be the thing that decides. So it's $549, which That's like Pixel 9a, nothing phone 3a Pro.
Yes.
It's in that realm. So for that, I think it could fly. I really don't think it's a flagship, and that's kind of the thing. I thought they're going to go a little higher end than that, but oh well. Other than that, we also have a GT7. Now, this one's interesting. This one's much more interesting. The GT7, I've got it here as well. We're going to do the same thing, show you real quickly. There's the box.
Yeah.
And this has a 7,000 milliamp hour battery.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's
How
a
thick
silicon
is that
carbon.
boy?
It's
is
not.
It decently thin?
It's normally like 7 millimeters, 8 millimeters, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks a lot like the GT7 Pro that they launched with an 8 Elite back in, I don't know, like in the fall. But again, plastic edges. Mm-hmm. So they've gone away from metal on this one. But the specs here, I've got them all. And they're pretty good. So it's got a Dimensity 9400E, which is not the highest end or anything, but it's the biggest thing is the battery and the charging speed, 120 watt charging. Mm. And they have a Chinese version and a Euro version or global version. This is a global version. And they're slightly different, which is interesting. So Dimensity 9400E, which is essentially like the flagship minus chip, basically from MediaTek, right? And here are the exact dimensions for you: 8.3 millimeters. And as you can see here, it's really not that bad, right? Like it's just standard thickness.
Crazy.
I know. Yes. And so I think that's what the thing is about this phone that I think is really interesting is that they did show a concept of a 10,000 milliamp hour phone that was 8 millimeters thin. Wow. So I think within 5 years, we're either going to have phones that are the same thickness as today with 10,000 milliamp hour batteries, or we're going to have Galaxy S25 Edge thickness with regular 2-day battery life, which is kind of what all the Chinese phones are aiming for. I think it comes with a case in here, which is nice. You get a little TPU case. And then the nice thing about this, unlike the Moto, which I didn't bother to show you, but doesn't really have anything in the box, this comes with the 120 watt charger in the box. So
nice.
Yeah, so I'm going to be putting this through its paces, folks. Stay tuned because I have the GT7 Pro, which is the 8 Elite flagship phone. But it was the first 8 Elite phone I got. Literally like the week after the Snapdragon Summit had arrived. Like the Chinese are kind of crazy when it comes to like, oh, we're going to give you everything right away. Anyway, so those are the two phones that I got this week. And stay tuned for more about those. One quick thing about this GT7 is the cameras are interesting. It's got the same main sensor as the Pro version, which is a 50 megapixel large, like 1/1.5 inch phase detect autofocus OIS. And then it has somehow, for some reason, just a 2x 50 megapixel telephoto without OIS. And I don't know why does anybody with a 2x telephoto? Like when you have 50 megapixel, 2x is in sensor crop. You don't even digitally crop. It's like in sensor. So it's actually lossless pretty much. Yeah. So we'll put a 3x at least in there. And then it's got an 8 megapixel ultra wide. Wah, wah, wah. But yeah, the only thing that's interesting about this phone, I think, is the Dimensity, the 7,000 milliamp hour. The 120 watts been done before. Lots of Chinese phones have that. Yeah. So anyway, we have a bunch of other things I wanted to cover with you real quick about phones because, well, the news, right? So Pixel 10 news real quick.
Okay.
What do you think of this? Just because I think it's odd. Tensor has been, partnered with Samsung, right? It's essentially an Exynos chip slightly modified for Google. And it's been made on Samsung's manufacturing process, right? Whatever their fab is right now, I think it's like 4 nanometers or whatever. But now they're going to be made by TSMC for the Pixel 10. That's the rumor. And on top of that, they're not going to use the Samsung modem that goes with it. They're going to use a MediaTek modem. So that's really odd. And it feels to me that it's going to improve radio performance and efficiency in terms of battery life, especially since the G5 is already being, we've been kind of told that it would be more efficient. So what do you think? Do you think that's the only way they're able to achieve efficiency? Because we all know the TSMC process is more efficient in terms of the final product. Remember when the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 came out and then the 8 Plus Gen 1 came out with TSMC and it was just a better chip all around?
Right.
Like, do you think I mean, this obviously doesn't matter to the average consumer, but do you think that we're going to see improvements because of these rumors? Do you want to see improvements?
Of course I do. Like Pixel is definitely has its shortcomings compared to other flagship phones. And it's these little things that they really need to polish off, right? Like the rest of the hardware, the cameras, the software, that stuff is already like, very well done. And it's really these niggling little things. Now, like you just said, the regular consumer is not going to notice or care about this stuff. But, I think it'll improve the pipeline long term.
But also, what does it mean about long term for Google's partnership with Samsung? Because this seems really weird. Like that Samsung would say you can have TSMC make your chip and not use our modem. They've been kind of married very tightly for the last 4 chips, right? And now we're seeing this detachment happening. It's a bit odd,
It's all
right?
business, man. It's all business at the end of the day. So
you're right.
I mean, it's all business, so doesn't matter to the average consumer. A better product is a better product.
I'll put a link in the show notes, folks. We're going to move on. The other thing I want to tell you that the phone has leaked again. There was a photo shoot here, like literally like down the block from my house here. And I'm in Vancouver right now. My place, I'm right on the waterfront, at the beach. They were filming just down the street. I didn't even know. I think I was in SF for IO at the time, so I wasn't around. But yeah, and the person who took the photos of this has all the colors, all the shapes and sizes. So if you want to know what the Pixel 10 is going to be, I think the cat is pretty much officially out of the bag.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, it looks a lot like Pixel 9.
Well, we kind of knew that was going to happen. I think that this design language is very solid. What we've seen on Pixel 9, I think they should continue, right? Yeah.
I like the Pixel 9 Pro a lot.
Me too.
It feels just so well balanced.
Pro XL because I can't live without a big screen. So, yeah.
I got the smaller one. I'm a smaller guy.
Small one is great. I support both small and big. I'm big. You're small. It works.
Preferences.
I know. It's like tablet size. So we're going to talk about that next week. Okay. Samsung Galaxy Z7 Flip is going to be Exynos powered, and it's going to be Exynos powered in the US. Like this is kind of freaking me out a little bit.
That one is.
I want to hear your thoughts on that because that's kind of like the Tensor stuff. It's like, what?
Yeah. I think that one's, again, consumers are not going to care. But tech people are like, what is this? Because historically, Exynos is just worse performance, worse efficiency than Qualcomm chips. And we already know that, I think a few times, maybe like the early days, the flip phone and the fold phones, did not have the latest flagship chip, I believe, in the first generation. So
that's right.
I don't know. Again, it's probably ultimately down to a business decision, exchange of money,
It could also just be that they're confident that this Exynos chip can perform. It's been true that in the past, I think part of the reason they've avoided Exynos here in the US and in North America in general, because of course, compatibility with the carriers has been a thing too. But look, I have a Fan Edition S24, right? That was an Exynos and that was sold in North America as an Exynos, right? It wasn't the greatest chip, but obviously the certification stuff is possible. So that's not the hurdle. I think the hurdle is the quantity of 8 Elite chips that are going to be available, right? I think that's going to be the challenge. So it's interesting because it feels to me like either they don't want to spend the money, as you said, it's a business decision, or they are like not getting access to as many 8 Elites anymore for some reason. I don't know. I hope it doesn't make the phone worse. And I really hope.
I hope not.
I really hope they get a full screen experience like the Razer. Do you think they're ever going to let us run full apps like they do on Razer? Because Samsung has been kind of pushing back on that.
I don't think so.
Does that bug you?
No, it doesn't really bother me. I think the whole point of a flip phone is to use your phone less. It becomes more cumbersome to like open it up and get the full screen experience. And so I do subscribe to, if you're going to get a flip, you need to like kind of, or like widgets or, use that as more like a smartwatch like experience,
I feel torn about it. Like I feel that there is a use case where,
and I think that's what they want to do, but like they were pressured by Motorola and other companies too, because they were adding the full screen.
I feel like
cover screens.
Having used the Razer now a lot, I mean, the last 3 generations, I feel like there is something to be said about I'm going to do something simple that doesn't restrict me in terms of app use
Mm-hmm.
on the front screen. And then I need more real estate, so I'm opening it up. Kind of like the Fold, right? I can do everything. I don't have my Find in 5 years, so it's on my desk. But I use it all the time. And it's like, I use it as a normal phone most of the time. And then every now and then I'm like, oh, I need more room. And I kind of feel like the Razr has that because you can run any app in the front, so you're not restricted. And then, of course, if you have clicks, you know, that is a kind of a perfect combo. How do you feel about that? Because you're chuckling. How do you feel about the keyboard, the hardware keyboard comeback?
It's a fun product, but it's just too goofy and impractical.
For you, right?
For most people, I would say 99% of the population.
But they're doing so well.
I mean, good for them. I support, you know, Michael Fisher and etc. But like I said, it's a fun, quirky product, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just most people cannot carry a surfboard in their pocket, you know, even in their back pocket.
Oh, it's true. No, but I think with the Razr, it's a good combo. That's kind of feels like the new BlackBerry to me, you know?
All right.
Because you can keep it shut, right? And then you can use most of the front screen. You no longer have the keyboard taking up the real estate, saves you some battery. Every now and then you need to get more productive. You flip it open, you know? I don't know. I can see the point there. Right. Speaking of Samsung stuff, One UI 8 beta is out. If you're a One UI fan, I'm not. Go try it out because they finally promised, you probably will laugh at this, you know that little pill, that like Now pill or whatever that Samsung has, it's supposed to tell you like all the wonderful things that you could do
version
today.
Of the dynamic island.
Basically only gives you the weather right now pretty much on UI 7. I think it's supposedly going to improve. So finally, because I just find that feature very gimmicky and useless personally. So I mean, Apple did it best, right?
Apple's is still pretty limited. I think the Samsung one has more like things you can do with it. But you know, everyone copies from everybody.
Yeah, I know. It's freaking.
You know, they all kind of copy and find their own ways to.
How do you feel about the iPhone 17 Air rumors that it's going to ship with a silicon carbon battery, and that's only 3,000 milliamp, but that in Apple world, that's actually pretty good because remember the 16E is 4,000, right? So, and that's one of the best battery lives on any iPhone right now. I think this is good because silicon battery, we need somebody in North America, not a Chinese phone manufacturer because OnePlus is a Chinese phone manufacturer. We need a non-Chinese phone manufacturer to give us a silicon carbon battery. And I was annoyed that Samsung did not dare to do that with the Edge.
I mean, when you go super slim, you kind of really have to push the cutting edge. And
you would think so, but Samsung didn't. And now you get a 1-day battery life out of the Edge.
Well,
so hopefully,
I think Samsung was probably burned.
Oh wow, yeah. I keep saying
they're very cautious with their batteries because of the Galaxy Note 7.
They have PTSD about that.
They really pushed the limits of that Note 7 to the point of, for the sake of thinness, and they're careful now.
It was like a decade ago.
I know.
Go see a therapist.
That's crazy.
Samsung.
I mean, it's also crazy. It's been almost a decade ago, but like they gotta be careful. They can't be burned twice. You know,
fair.
So they're gonna be careful about it and make sure.
The Chinese have been doing it for 3 years. Silicon carbon. It's fine. It's safe. We know it works.
I mean, they're not that thin though.
Well, the OnePlus 13 is not that thin, but has a 6,000 milliamp hour battery in it.
Sure.
So scale it down in thinness, and what you get? You get a 4,500 milliamp hour battery instead of 3,900. You know, that's kind of what I would like to see. But you're right. I think the trauma is real.
I'm hopeful that the battery rumors are not as, you know, overblown as they're being reported right now, which is they're supposed to like only last like 70 to 80% of your regular iPhone before you have to recharge it. So we'll see. I mean, everyone's battery life is.
I'm actually very excited about the iPhone Air. I think it's going to be cool. I think they're going to do it right. And honestly, the Edge is good. Like, I don't think the Edge is a bad phone. I think the Edge, if you just don't need the battery life and you want a really light, really thin, it's really in a hand feel is really quite something. If you want that experience, it delivers. But zooming up to 10x only, and it's not that great doing it because they don't use AI like the Chinese phones do. You know, there's all these things, and then of course $1,100. You know, but of course Apple will do it, and it'll hopefully be better. Let's find out. Those naming rumors of Apple's OSs. That doesn't work for me. I know it's going to happen. I'm sure it's true.
I mean, how do you? Nothing's a done deal until it's a done deal. You know.
Well, do you really think that? Like, I mean, Samsung names their phones after the year, which makes sense.
Yeah.
You know.
But this is the software.
Which is weird.
The software.
They're probably not going to name the iPhone 26 or 25.
They're not going to do that. They're absolutely not going to do that because that would seem like they're copying Samsung, and they do not ever want to seem like they're.
So then why would they do it with their software? Why not unify all the numbers like they did?
We can't say it's confirmed yet. You know, Mark Gurman is good, but it's not a done deal until it's a done deal.
You know what?
Look, no disrespect to Mark Gurman. He's a sharp reporter. He gets a lot of scoops, but he's been wrong before, and not just like a few times. He's been wrong. Okay,
You're right. You're right.
And look, again, no disrespect, Mark. Mark's a friend. And you just have to wait. Like, we have to wait. It's possible that this could be wrong. Like, the rumor is that they're going to rename all the software to the based on the year, and well, not even that year that it's released, but the next year, because it's like released in the fall, and it gets iOS updates in the next year. And so the rumor is that all of them are going to be called iOS 26, macOS 26, Apple Watch 26. It gets confusing for users, like, okay, what version it is, because they are all released at different times. I get that, wanting to simplify that part, but I don't know. It just doesn't sound right to me. If anything, to just like call it like iOS and then just put in parentheses the year, you know?
Apple's been doing weird decisions like that for a while, so I don't know.
Right.
I agree that you're the voice of reason here, and I appreciate that because I felt that was a little out in left field, and I didn't think it was very realistic, and it kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like, I think that I feel like, you know, Apple, actually, honestly, if you look at old Apple, iPhones should just be called iPhones. There should be no number.
There should be.
It's like, we should look it up, but like Razer does. It's like the year is in bracket next to it, like Razer 2025, previous year is 2024. Mm-hmm. This is how it should be. Why is it Moto's doing it right and Apple's not doing it right?
I mean, I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, let's move on. I got a few other items here.
Yeah.
OnePlus announces AI features. So I'll let you guys look at that. There's going to be a link in the show notes. I'm not, it's basically very similar to what we've seen Nothing do and Moto do with the AI button, and these essentially creating a little box inside your phone that contains all of your dealings with AI locally, not necessarily locally because there's some edge stuff, but some cloud stuff as well. But it's just more like creating kind of like an agent that gets to know you on your phone. And I think that's really good. And I think what some of the stuff that OnePlus is showing is actually really clever. But my big fear and concern with this, and I want to know what you think, is that how portable is this? Like, how do you change phones? Not even another brand, but you change to another Moto or another OnePlus or another.
You probably can't bring that over.
And if you can, how safe is it to bring that data over that has so much of your personal knowledge graph?
I think that's a great question to ask. Nobody really knows. Like when you transfer your phones, what happens to all the stuff that it knows about you, learned about you over time? Like, does that? I think there's going to be more of a reliance on a dedicated chip or a component like a neural processor or some kind of advanced coprocessor that actually stores all this stuff. And I think Apple's going to do that.
Yeah, if you do the same as the fingerprint chip, where it's like it's paired with your phone. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that's possible. Huh?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
We'll find out, folks. So stay tuned and look at that article. We're talking about Nothing just a second ago because they also have an AI button and an AI kind of like little playground like that. They're teasing their phone 3 and there's no glyph supposedly. I kind of feel like they're just I feel like they're just messing with us. This is to get it. No, you think they got rid of it?
I've seen some of the leaks and some of the teasers that they pushed out. I don't know if you saw the snippets. But yeah, I think they're killing it. It's done. At least for the phone 3. Maybe it's still going to be a thing for the mid-range.
The 3A, the
thing
A
about
series,
the glyph is it literally is a flashy like feature, but it's limiting. There's only so many things you can do. Like, if you ever tried using the timer, the Uber,
I agree.
Countdown, there's really not much you can do with it.
But it's so cool.
Well, they're going to replace it with something
cooler,
more versatile, which is, I think, from what I've seen, you guys can look online, is a dot matrix like LED, because they've been teasing like a little thing about Snake. And
so a rear display, basically, we're going back to the dual display phones that China made 5 years ago.
It's going to be a rear display. I think it's going to be like
a dot matrix thing.
Dot matrix. So like Asus has done something. I think a gaming phone, Asus ROG.
Yeah, Asus ROG phone. The phone 8, I think, had the dot matrix on the back.
Yeah,
maybe the
I'm thinking
9
something like that, but
yeah.
it's like more than just RGBs. It could do a little more. So yeah, I think this is their next thing. Like nothing has a thing with like dot fonts, and
good
so
point.
their logo is like,
it.
A dot font. I think I've seen the teasers.
We're safe.
Call me if I'm wrong,
No, I think you're right. We're safe. I didn't research it super much. You seem to have more info, so that's great.
I've seen a little bit, yeah.
All right, so quick little PSA. If you're into gaming phones, RedMagic does this all the time. They come out with their flagship every year. This year was the 10 Pro and an 8 Elite, and now they've just announced a 10S Pro. And the 10S Pro is essentially like they do every year, where they give the better Snapdragon chip in there, the overclocked one that Samsung always gets first. That's basically the chip. And so if you're into gaming phones, RedMagic phones are pretty cool. They're pretty affordable. They sold officially in the US. They support 5G bands. Check it out. It's coming June 5 to the global markets, which means our market as well. And then, that's
I think they're pretty underrated.
I agree. I think they're great.
They have like all screen design, truly no notch, no like little pinhole hole punch.
And the under display camera has gotten better over the years.
It's gotten better. It's actually better than what you find on Samsung Galaxy devices. So, they're underrated, and I mean, the design might be a little not to my personal taste.
I kind of like the monolith thing.
I don't hate the monolith thing. I just don't like the little like.
The decorative, the baroqueness of it all. Yeah, I gotcha.
I think they're trying to like mimic a little bit of what Nothing's trying to do and whatnot. But if you put it in case, it's going to be a good looking phone, and
it comes with a case in the box.
Hey, there we go.
Like all Chinese phones. Last bit of news is last week we heard about the Xiaomi 15S Pro, which is a 15 Pro, but with their own in-house chip, the X-Ring 01, which came out, it's China only. There is a very in-depth, I'll put a link in the show notes, so a very in-depth story here that Jess and Marina picked up about like what's inside that chip and how it's, compares to an 8 Elite or a 9400 from MediaTek, etc., or an A18 chip from Apple. So check it out if you're really super nerdy and you want to know what, Xiaomi's doing here, because my feeling, and you tell me what you think, we can end on this, right?
Yeah.
Is I feel like the Chinese phone manufacturers are going towards their own OSs and their own chips for their own market, right? Like this is where they're headed, right? This is clear to me. So what do you think?
Oh, 100% agree. When Huawei got like banned from using, Western like components,
and OSs.
and OSs, they realized that they cannot let these foreigners dictate their destiny, and it took many years for them to catch up. Now they've caught up, if not exceeded.
I mean, there's rumors that the MateBook Fold, the laptop tablet foldy thing that we discussed last week, has a 5 nanometer chip, which they weren't supposed to be able to make. Yeah. And now there's supposed to be a 3 nanometer chip from SMIC on the roadmap for next year. I knew this was going to happen, Ray. I knew it.
They're going to leapfrog. They're going to leapfrog, and it's just going to widen the gulf between what China and Asia gets versus what foreigners and or Western countries get. Because, China in terms of tech is truly a different planet.
100%. And you've seen that with EVs in particular.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. EVs, everything, automation. Like they're living in 2035 and we're living in 2025. And this is really to allow them to control their own destiny. I suspect every Chinese phone maker is going to become like less reliant on
and it makes sense.
Chips and
but at the same time, because they're so flexible with their manufacturing and they're such masterful at in general supply chain management, they're going to be able to make an 8 Elite, whatever, phone for the West that's going to deliver us a great Android experience that we expect. And, the hardware is going to be essentially the same with just a different chip and a different OS. And we're going to love it. And you're going to compare the photos on both and they're going to look exactly the same. It's going to be amazing.
I agree. I mean, this is... if you're not paying attention to this now, you'll be caught off guard in a few years. But we're obviously
and
early
that's why I'm a
adopters.
little worried about Samsung and Apple, to be honest with you, because I like their stuff, but at the same time, I don't see that urgency. I don't see that excitement. I don't see that go-gettingness that you see with the Chinese makers. Like this 7,000 milliamp hour phone from Realme. This is amazing.
People, these companies are resting on their laurels right now, and they're not feeling the heat and need to compete. And China is really up in the ante, and with the way the geopolitical climate right now, people are just looking at other options with a different perspective. People same with all services. People are looking at RedNote and looking at Chinese companies, and even the Chinese just like very differently. After Trump start tariffing everything, and
there's that
threatening to destroy TikTok or whatever.
It's a mess.
It's a mess. But I'm also I'm going to be honest. I was very excited to see that people were opening their eyes to all this amazing tech out there that we just can't get, and don't have access to. And it's like, wow, if you only could,
This is exactly why I try to make a point of talking about what's it's happening in China. I try to make a point about covering this tech, because also my audience is international. I have people listening in India. I have people listening in the UK and Australia. I'm in Canada right now. I spend half my time up here, half my time in San Francisco. So, it's like, I think it's important, and I'm glad you're preaching with me together.
I support innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. Ray, tell people where they can find you on the internet, your various social media handle, all that good stuff.
Sure. Yeah, please give Gizmodo a million clicks. Click on all my articles 100 billion times, and all my team's articles. And you can find me on Twitter or X at Ray Wongy. That's RayWongy. You can find me on Instagram at Sour Lemons. If you want to follow my cat Lemons and her baby Kiwi, follow them at Fun Lemons on Instagram. And I think that's it. I guess Blue Sky, if you really want to follow me. I can't even remember. My Blue Sky is Ray Wong, no Y at the end. raywong.bsky.social.
There you go. Folks, please go check out Gizmodo stuff. I'm so glad that Ray is at Gizmodo. It's going to make a huge difference, I think. We're going to see
some whole new era.
Exactly.
Of Gizmodo.
It's a new era, and you're there for it. So, and you know where to find me, folks, on the internet. I'm at Tankgirl, TNKGRL, like the comic book character. Just drop the vowel. That's my handle pretty much everywhere. I'm on all the platforms, but mostly I'm on Blue Sky, on Threads, on Instagram. But if you want to chat with me and Ray, please hit us up on social. The podcast is at mobiletechpodcast.com. We're on all the major platforms, Spotify, Google, Apple, everything. So please subscribe if it's your first time here. You can also subscribe to the RSS link on the website. If your app lets you rate or review the show, please do that. I'd be happy if you did. And then there's a YouTube channel, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast, with some occasional unboxing, hands-ons. I think the most recent videos for the Razer event we did in New York. So check that out. And then there is a Patreon, as I mentioned a few times, patreon.com/Tankgirl, just like my handle, TNKGRL. There is a video version of this podcast. It comes out every week, like the podcast does. You get it in advance, about a day or so in advance, which is great. And I leave bloopers in there and extra content. And it's $5 a month. It gives you a video version in advance every week. So consider that. Consider supporting me with Patreon, patreon.com/TNKGRL. And I want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. You know I review a lot of phones, so I'm constantly juggling multiple devices. While that's fun, it also means I'm spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. Thankfully, there's Mint Mobile, and that's who I'm teaming up with for today's podcast. If you want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. You've probably seen the Mint Mobile ads featuring Ryan Reynolds, but let me quickly tell you how fantastic their service is, especially for tech-savvy early adopters like us. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current devices and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM card free of charge. The whole process only takes 15 minutes, and if you get stuck, Mint has a great customer service team to get you through it. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning-fast 5G and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link, mintmobile.com/mobiletech to get premium wireless starting at $15 a month. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And Ray, thanks so much for taking the time on a Friday afternoon. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the show again.
Yeah, it's always fun, and I hope to be back.
Absolutely. We'll definitely have you on again. And folks, we'll have a show next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.